Yeah. So I know that.
So they're coming up to visit tomorrow.
Yeah, I usually don't touch the business and not ever give this stuff to it.
Definitely.
Yeah. I try to keep those lines dry.
Sure, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm running out of options.
I hear you. Okay.
I'd like to call to order the Committee on Land, Agriculture, and Rural Affairs here in Superior, and let you know I'm really happy to be here, and that I'm glad that you all turned out for the meeting. And it's an important subject for all of our small communities outside of the big valley out there, who seems to kind of soak up all the oxygen on a lot of these things. So I'm really glad to be here, and looking forward to some really good information and some interaction from you all in this discussion we're going to have. And there are some request to speak forms on the table over here and in the back. So if you would like to address the committee and the audience, please fill one of those out so we can have it ready when we come to the request to speak and the public testimony, that sort of thing. So I really appreciate it if you get those filled out and get them turned in. You can bring them up here, which is fine, or you can return them back to the table over there. And our presentations, you all probably have an agenda. We're going to, Todd Pryor, the Town of Superior, is going to open up our discussion, and then we'll move on to Douglas Pinal County Assessor, and Mike McCord, the Pinal County, oh, that's, hey, there you go. Very cool. That's even better. And of course, I'd like to introduce my seatmate, Representative Shope. He's going to give us some welcome introductions and some remarks as well. As you know, this is part of his district, and we've worked very well together in the legislature on rural affairs. It's something that we really have to do. And then also we'll hear from Keith Watkins from the Arizona Commerce Authority Economic Development for Rural Communities, and Mark Heck of the Arizona Health Cost Containment about our health care and the estates that go into disrepair as many of our elderly people move into specialized care. So I would like to introduce right now Representative Shope.
Thank you, Chairwoman Barton. Thank you for having me. As you know, it was a pleasure to serve with you on this committee for the first 4 years I was in office, and the last 2 years, and I had other affairs to handle while there. But it's great to be here in Superior. This is an issue that we're going to be talking about today, and a series of issues that we're going to be talking about today that I know the mayor and I have spoken about. And I think that they are definitely not confined to Superior, much less just this area of the copper corridors. I've heard from council members and town managers from every community in the area for sure. I think it's something that's also shared in the areas of where we would consider fast growth areas in the Casa Grandes and Coolidge's and Florence areas as well, in the probably older portions of those communities. So it's something that's definitely on my mind. It's something that I'd like to thank you, Chairwoman Barton, for coming to Superior today and sharing this with us. I'd also would be remiss if I didn't thank my LD8 seatmate, Mr. David Cook, for inviting me, making sure that I had the knowledge of what was going on today, as well as Representative Benali. Thank you. Welcome to LD8 and coming down to Superior today. So with that, thank you for having me. I look forward to hearing everybody's discussions. And I will apologize ahead if I don't shake your hand today. It's for your own good. You can probably tell that I'm a little under the weather today, so I'm doing it for you.
That's a good idea. Thank you very much. Appreciate your concern for us. Seriously. Okay, so let's move right into a presentation by Todd Pryor. He's going to give us a presentation on blight and abandoned buildings. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming and shining light on our issues. These aren't new issues. The entire region has had problems with blight ever since the 90s. The mining industry had a major retraction, and many of our communities had massive businesses and hit large vacancy rates, and that has continued to today. We've had limited success in dealing with the issues, and I'll discuss our successes and our failures as we go through this. And we do desperately need some help from our legislators to try to come up with solutions to problems that have proved intractable. The broken windows theory, I'm sure everyone's heard it. This is kind of the mantra for code enforcement. It essentially says that one broken window on a street can lead to abandonment, can lead to crime, can lead to arson, and those items, small disorders lead to larger ones. So if we can deal with the small problems before they turn into large problems, perhaps we can save the street. If you look in Superior, you'll have a hard time finding a street that is not at least touched by blight. Most of the streets have at least one issue. Our vacancy rate, the national average is 10%. Detroit, the poster child for abandonment, is 19.6. Superior is 24.7, and New Orleans is 25. You can see most of the Copper Quarter is well above the national average, and New Orleans is the blight range. So it's not just a Superior issue, though Superior is a bit of the local poster child for it. It is a regional issue. Speculators have driven the market. Again, as the town was vacated in the 90s, speculators moved in and purchased all of these properties for pennies on the dollar. The current taxing policy does kind of incentivize these properties, because a property that, if you say that the property is not occupiable, you appeal its value, you go to the Board of Equalization and get them to give you a lower value, you may be paying half to a quarter what your neighbor who's got a viable business in it is paying for property tax. This means the town does not have the financial resources to deal with blight problems, and these properties are a significant portion of our main street. These buildings should be our most productive, should be the largest revenue generators for the town. So they're not only producing no property tax, producing no sales tax, no employment, and they are centered to our downtown. So they are depressing the entire community. It's very difficult to convince someone to come in and spend $2 million to fix up a building right next to a building that's falling into the street. That's been Superior's challenge for the last 20 years, trying to have that conversation to stimulate economic growth. With this problem in the center of our community, we have very limited success in dealing with it. Lower taxes mean we have no money to deal with these. The owners who own these properties generally have very good resources and lots of money. A prime example is one gentleman we wrote 8 code enforcement tickets for. They were commercial, so he was fined $2,000 a piece. Our attorney attempted to collect that money, made some very bad missteps in the case, and she was disbarred. The town was left with a $130,000 settlement we had to pay to the speculator, and because they mishandled the case so bad. We had a hands-off order from our attorneys for 5 years. We weren't even allowed to write a ticket. So this gentleman owns 68 properties in town. You can see that had a significant impact. Abandonment is another issue. Now, abandonment of the vacant building list, there are about 75 of those buildings that we consider unsafe. We've gone around and we've looked at all the buildings, we've rated how open they are to the public, how much their structural collapse, what their appearance is. And we've determined that 75 buildings belong on that dangerous building list. Originally, when we started, it was 98 buildings. Our most effective method has always been code enforcement. We go out and write somebody a ticket. That person, if you write them enough tickets, gets tired of it, eventually they deal with the problem. The problem with the abandoned building list is there's nobody to write a ticket to. They may be deceased, they may be out of the state, and they don't extradite for code enforcement. They may just be completely unresponsive, and in that case, the town is left holding the bag. We have to abate the problem.
I think would be a good step in the right direction, because in this situation, this is a public safety issue. If vagrants are moving into a property and it gets burned down, you're putting other people's lives in jeopardy, you're putting the firefighters' lives in jeopardy, and I think for public safety, added to that statute would probably be a good step. The other thought that I had in my mind was, if it is a city and it is incorporated, maybe before it goes to deeding back to the state, maybe there could be a mechanism in there where the city would have the option to take on that deed without having to incur any expense, much like the state has the option.
Right, so it would intervene before it actually goes to the state, that the town would have the opportunity to receive the property in lieu of going all the way to the state and trying to start that process through that
Correct.
act? Okay.
Correct. So those would, I mean, just kind of brainstorming earlier with
That's what we have to do, we just have to throw ideas out.
well, those would be the two things off the bat that in my mind would be kind of quick wins for this situation, is having them have the ability to get ahead of the state if a city wants that ability. I mean, they obviously have the right to say no. Or if it is an unincorporated area, much like, say, Santan Valley, the simple answer would be that it just gets deeded back to the state. There is no mechanism ahead of that because it's not incorporated.
So you're limiting it to municipalities then?
I would say so because
Incorporated.
I don't think because the county would already be holding it if it's unincorporated. We
But
would already have.
but they're not holding a title necessarily.
We're not.
But in order to do some of the reclamation on the property, you do need a title.
Right.
So.
But I don't know that the county would do that. I can't speak for the board of supervisors, but,
Okay,
so I think that's, I think in thinking through this process, putting some mechanism in there maybe before the state takes the deed to it,
Right.
the title of the property, that
Allowing
the town would
municipalities.
have maybe first bite at the apple.
okay. That's what we're gonna have.
Any other questions for me?
Thank you very much, appreciate being here.
Thanks.
Okay, so, looks like Keith Watkins, it's your turn. From the Arizona Commerce Authority, Economic Development in Rural Communities. Good to see you here today.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good to see you, members of the community, or of the committee. Thank you for your time today. I want to apologize in advance for the Superior folks who were at the chamber meeting last week, because this is much the same presentation as we talked about last week. I represent the Arizona Commerce Authority, and our agency doesn't necessarily deal with blight of communities in a direct sense. What we do is we try to facilitate job growth in Arizona and facilitate the enhancement of those economies in those communities. And by doing those things, that will indirectly lift these communities. In fact, it was pointed out to me that this picture of Main Street Superior here is about 5 years old, Sue? A little older than that. So you can see by going down Main Street today, it's looks vastly different, and I think that's a testament to the commitment of the people of Superior. We have been active in the recruitment and expansion of businesses and jobs in Arizona for the last 5 years, which has been the lifespan of our agency. And the numbers presented up here on the screen represent some of our successes in the rural communities. One of the other things that we've done with the communities is to enter into a co-op advertising campaign. And we borrowed this idea from our friends at the Arizona Office of Tourism. We recognize that we spend a significant amount of money advertising the state to businesses. And so what we did was we opened up our buying power to the rural communities to tack on an ad on our ad buy in the publications that we were purchasing those ads in. So for instance, in the Wall Street Journal, we may buy an ad for 3 weeks, and it would be an online ad, and we would work with the community to foster a message to their town and then drive the traffic back to their website. So we did that with a number of communities as presented here, and we're going to be doing that again this year.
Okay, we do have a question.
Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Keith, I want to point out something before you change the slide. You guys have been here 5 years, right? Let's go down there where it says infrastructure grants for economic development. I just want to point out that my loved Copper Corridor, I don't see anyone listed on there, okay? I do see people in Pinal County. I see Coolidge and Casa Grande. But my question is that because no one has applied What can we do different to solve that right there, that problem? And I think that's a problem because, you know, the city of Coolidge and of course Casa Grande is growing and booming, Lucid Motors is coming. Completely different than the people that I love and work with through here, which is Hayden, Winkleman, Gurney, you know, and Superior. So let's change that somehow.
That's a great point, Representative Cook. One of the communities that's not on here, that should be on here, is Globe. We helped Globe with a sewer line to an industrial property a couple of years ago. But the reason that not every community is up here is because the communities have to apply for these grant monies.
Yeah.
They have to have active projects. They have to have active infrastructure projects that drive an employment use that are ready to go, ready to be built.
So that's my question. I know the town of Miami has a sewer project with roads and streets they're working on, but so is it a thing that the towns don't know, or they're not applying, or are they not getting all their stuff there? How can we fix that?
Well, one of the provisos is our agencies focus on economic development. So these grants are designed to enhance infrastructure that serve an employment use, or a property that could have an employment use. And so you're correct, not every community applies. In fact, for the last, for 2 years in a row, we put out this grant of $2 million a time, and we had 0 applications.
So will you do me one favor? When you do that, just call someone up once.
Well, I'll tell you, that grant went away, because as you very well know, when you don't apply those funds appropriately, they get reallocated to other places. And so that's what happened with the infrastructure grant, but the communities hadn't been applying, and so it put us in an untenable situation.
Okay, thank you.
The other thing I'll note is economic impact analysis. Seems like kind of a trite academic thing, but when the base closure discussion was going on a few years ago, we felt the need to exhibit Arizona's impact that could be recognized if these bases close. And so we did an economic impact analysis for all of Arizona's bases, and lo and behold, none of them got closed. Some of the things we're working on currently in a going forward manner is broadband. This is a problem across all of rural Arizona, and we are doing what we can to facilitate the enhancement of broadband access in the rural communities. A couple of those things relate to removing barriers that prohibit construction of broadband infrastructure, things like right-of-way acquisitions, easements, those kinds of things. It's a common refrain for people to look at the highway out here and say, well, that's an ADOT easement, let's put some conduit down the median or down the side of the road. That's not very easily done, because ADOT themselves has easements and leases over the underlying property. And so one would have to go to each property owner to get their own individual easement or lease. And so that's something that we're going to try to work on, as well as with our federal partners at Bureau of Land Management, Forestry, as well as the tribes, because you have to get permission across all of those properties in order to put a conduit in. It's not always easy. Forestry. We recognize also that forestry is a challenge for Arizona. The Forest Service owns 2.9 million acres of our ponderosa pine forest, which is about 95%. Over the years, the Forest Service has been slow to release that acreage to be restored. What that's done is it's driven former folks in the logging and wood industry businesses out of the state or out of business. And so now that the Forest Service is ready to release a lot of these acres to be restored, we have no industry to handle the volume. So we are actively engaged in recruiting large industrial scale wood processing facilities to handle the volume that could come off of the forest. Smart borders, we're also keenly aware that our borders are a conduit of commerce for us, especially in the southern Arizona communities. Enhancing the ingress and egress of the borders through technology is really the way to make exponential leaps of advancement there. Ironically, it all gets back to broadband connectivity. Those communities are just as equally impacted by the lack of broadband as other rural communities. Workforce development, also an issue. And I would say that it's not just an issue in rural Arizona, but it's an issue in urban Arizona as well. It's more pronounced in the rural communities by virtue of the relative population numbers and labor pool numbers. We are working with our sister agencies, the Department of Corrections and Veterans Affairs, to help employers recognize that their institutions are also a part of the solution. As Governor Ducey has said, whether you like it or not, 95% of the incarcerated folks are going to get out. And so it should be incumbent upon all of us to make them productive members of society. And many of them are coming out significantly rehabilitated with remarkable skills. And then the Arizona Assets Map. This is something that was near and dear to Representative Cook's heart. He actually suggested we do this last legislative session. We in fact did. And it has been a big hit with all of the rural communities. This is an interactive map on our website that showcases all of the assets that each respective region and community has. And there's also a mechanism for the communities and the regions to go onto the website and suggest changes, additions, and subtractions of items. So this is really something we are proud of, and thank Representative Cook for making this suggestion. As I said, we've been working on broadband. I guess I got ahead of my slides, but we've been undergoing a process with others in the state government, Department of Transportation, State Land, Department of Administration, to identify what it is each of us could do given our respective missions and respective authorities. And as I mentioned, one of those is knocking down some of the barriers that exist. Another one is leveraging federal grant money, which we're preparing to do. And then a third one is to have a single source of information and contact that knows about the different broadband construction projects going on around the state, so that there can be a coordinated effort and marry up some of these projects and perhaps add extra conduit in the trench while it's open.
Okay, I do have a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Keith, and to the public, this right here is very important to Superior. I know we don't have logging and we don't have borders down there for ports that we're talking about, given the big picture, but the governor vetoed, Keith, my archaeological bill this year, right? Made it to his desk and he vetoed it. And this is exactly what people like me see, that it comes up Highway 60. We have two underserved communities off of Highway 60, which is Kearney. Kearney does not have reliable broadband over there, and it's because even though there's the highway going through there, like you said earlier, the cost of doing another survey to put that conduit in the ground is so expensive that the utility companies will not do it. They'll never have the return of their investment. So it takes government. We've got to find a way to fast track those things. And the other underserved community off of Highway 60 is up there at Canyon Day. It goes right up Highway 60 to Show Low, but it doesn't turn off to Canyon Day. So once again, high poverty communities, which have low income values, are underserved and continue to be underserved today. Meanwhile, these people up here and are fighting to keep our MVD offices open in rural Arizona, because down there they think you can redo your vehicle tag online or on your phone. And I just say, well, get on the phone in Superior and just drive anywhere from Superior besides back to the valley or Gonzales Pass. You can't even make a phone call. How are we going to register vehicles? So we're still fighting to keep those MVD offices open in rural Arizona. So thank you. I think you're hitting it on the nail right here.
Thank you very much. We think this is the preeminent issue that could lift the rural communities in our state. Small business services, small businesses of our state are not lost on us. We fully recognize that the small businesses out there are the backbone of our economy and our communities. And our efforts are centered around helping the entrepreneur get on their feet, get started. We've got an online checklist, which here again sounds very governmental-like. However, we get roughly 8,000 hits a month on this part of our website. We have a dedicated person that does nothing but answer the phone calls, and she's on the phone all day, and I'm glad it's her, not me. She is a talker. But she could tell you where to go for your articles of incorporation, how to file your LLC, difference between the state treasurer's office, the secretary of state's office, and then who to go talk to at the local and regional levels. And in fact, in many cases, she knows more about who the right people to talk to at the local and regional levels than the local and regional folks do. So this is a very valuable service for us, and especially for our rural constituents. Film and digital media. This is one of those things that has really elevated, I think, the exposure of our rural communities around the state. Our director of this office says repeatedly that California production companies aren't coming here to film in Phoenix because they can do that in Los Angeles. They're coming here to film in rural settings, and certainly rural Arizona has that, as evidenced here by the town of Superior. We've got some great assets for film and digital media production. And so we are out there marketing Arizona as a destination to film productions and to host productions. And then we're also working with those folks when we get an interest to coordinate their activity on the ground and make sure they're getting the right services they need and they're talking to the right people to get the right permits and access to things. So we're very proud of this, and it's not horribly punitive on our budget. Exports, we're very engaged in exports. This is also a very important basis for the Arizona economy, certainly around the mines, and the mining communities recognize that. We've got an individual that does nothing but focus on matching up businesses to other businesses in other countries to facilitate trade. And so we're very, very active in that, and quite proud of this program. There's the assets map I mentioned.
Excuse me, just one second. Can you tell me a little bit about the type of items you are working on the exports? Is this some of our small business folks?
Yes.
Creating an item that can be exported to other states and or other countries? I know even within the dairy product, we export almost all of our milk products to other countries, which is excellent for us.
Madam Chair, thank you. Yes, you hit the nail on the head. This is tailored for the small businesses that have a product or a service to export. The Freeport McMorans of the world aren't coming to us to ask for export help. It's the small entrepreneur who has something that they would like to sell or export. The wine industry is a perfect example. And so we're very active in focusing on that segment of the market.
That's good, because Arizona does have some really fine wine. And it's because of the type of soil we have and the elevation and the heat, and then it cools down in the night when you're in rural Arizona. It cools down at night, and it's very good for the vines and different types. Okay, good. Thank you.
I'll finish with opportunity zones. This is come out of the Department of the Treasury. This is a federal program in that it manifests itself by deferring and abating capital gains tax. And the way it does that is by designated geographic areas that are historically low-income areas, low-income census tracts. The Treasury asks us to recommend submittals for 25% of our eligible census tracts. we had 668 eligible census tracts. So we had to get that down to roughly 167, which we did. I'm very proud to say that this region is well represented with these opportunity zones, thanks in large part to Mayor Vesich. She was very, very active in leading this charge for the region. And she got everybody's attention when this came about. But we believe this will be another good marketing tool for some of our rural communities. And it will give investors another reason to take a look at these communities and make some capital investments and hopefully improve some properties. One of the rules on this program, talking about Light and the owner that owns 68 buildings here, is it's 1 for 1. Whatever you invest in the property, you have to spend in improving the property. So if you buy a property for $100, you have to spend at least another $100 to improve it. So that's the idea, is to try to elevate some of these communities by unlocking unrecognized capital gains.
Is this a federal program?
This is a federal program.
And is it limited on a 10-year or?
It does have a 10-year life.
I was guessing.
Yes, it sunsets at 10 years.
Okay, so if we were to purchase a blighted property, and as you said, 101, so $500, you would have to spend, to start with, at least $500.
Right.
But if you're going to make it a viable small business, of course you're going to spend more than $500.
You bet.
So the capital gains tax doesn't really happen until later. So it would be after 10 years.
The capital gains tax comes when you sell the property or you exit the investment.
Right.
And so that's the carrot that the federal government has put out there to say, if you'll hold the property after you improve it for 10 years, we will abate the capital gains that you would otherwise owe to the federal government.
Maybe something that Arizona might want to look at. It might help some of our small communities.
I know a few lawmakers.
Yes, you do. Thank you. Okay, continue, please.
Anyhow, that concludes my remarks. Happy to take any other questions or comments.
Sorry. Could have waited, I guess. I didn't realize it was at the end of your presentation. But I like that kind of an idea when you're talking about the opportunity zones. Arizona does have some opportunity zones and other names. They have a variety of names, which reduces the taxes and encourages businesses and small businesses to come into those zones. And but this might be something that we would just add to specifically for rural Arizona, which is really the area that is so filled with such blight. I mean,
yes.
I know we're in Superior, but you know what? I live in Payson, and then I'm actually from Safford, and you got Safford and Pima and Thatcher and all these little small towns all around there, and then Central is not really incorporated, but it's an area. And you know what? These small communities have a very hard time being able to increase their economic standing.
They do, and as I said, I think this is another opportunity for those communities to market themselves. I'm happy to say that every county in the state has at least one zone, sometimes more, and then several tribes also do. Navajo Nation has quite a bit of geographic area that's included in the zones.
Okay, good, thank you. Any questions at this time from the audience? Thank you.
I didn't have a question to say, but I just wanted to have my time.
Yeah.
I don't need that long.
It's 2.5.
So I'm Michelle Yurkovich. I'm the code enforcement specialist in the city of Globe. I've been doing it for about 2 years. I still consider myself pretty green because everything that we deal with is new. once I learn how to do one problem with blight, another one comes up that's bigger. I've had amazing successes. I've had huge failures. I'm a member of the Code Enforcement League of Arizona, and the city of Phoenix did a presentation that I just wanted to touch on briefly, and please keep in mind that I'm not an expert in this, but I think it might be something that could help all of us. So what they're doing is, for abatement, well, they start with an abandoned property that, if, let's say it's not secure, they secure it, they do the weeds. It's the same thing that, you know, we all do. They take it a step further, and they have a whole abatement department in Phoenix. And I know, I understand that they have, you know, the budget, and they have the whole department, that this is just what they do. But they've had such amazing success. So after they have the, they've done the securing the building and everything that they've done to fix the blight problems on the building and make sure that it's secure, they tabulate all those costs, and then they put a lien on the property for those costs, which we've done this. They take it a step further, and then they foreclose on that lien. So once they foreclose on the lien, it forces sell the property, and then I understand it puts them in first position. So they get their money back for securing the property and the abatement process, and then it does another thing where someone else buys the property, so that takes care of that problem where now it's someone owns it that has fixed up the property and done all the improvements, and then it's back on the tax rolls, and there's a family in it, and it's not abandoned anymore. And they've had a lot of success, and I want to copycat, because I've done it up to the point where I've gone to court with people, I've torn down buildings myself. I think this is just one more step. So they're not trying to be property owners. They don't want the property. They're just putting a lien on. They're doing a foreclosure on the lien and getting that money back, and then forcing to sell the property for that money. And then that, I mean, it's a good solution to the problem. So I'm gonna try it. So I was just gonna let everybody know that Phoenix has, I have a slideshow that was forwarded to me from this event, and I would be happy to forward that to anybody, because I'm gonna be in contact with them for more information on that.
Good idea. I do have a question for my representative.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you for coming down here and being here today with us. But when you said that they take and they force that sale, is that through the sheriff's sale? Is that
Yes,
the sheriff's
that's my understanding, yes.
Okay.
And again, I attended a presentation. I wanted more information, so I make sure that I did understand it correctly. But I understand they didn't foreclose on the house per se, but they foreclosed on that lien and forced the sale of that house. And when it was sold, it put them in first position, and they got their money back, which is the goal. But also the long-term goal of getting these houses sold to somebody that will improve it and be living in it and start the tax process again and be, someone living in our community. Yeah.
Well, you've always been a go-getter, and Globe was lucky to have you up there, that's for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited. My failures are big, but I'm trying to learn from them. And my successes are amazing. It's a good thing.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming up and sharing that with us.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, I would like to comment. The town has, in fact, gone through that whole process several times. Our problem is, again, the economics. The building isn't worth the cost of abatement, so we lose money on each of those. We've done it, again, several times. Every lien we've tried, every foreclosure on a lien, we've lost money, especially since we don't have attorneys in-house to do the foreclosures, so we're paying an outside attorney for foreclosure.
Well, I can see some problems with your statement right there. There's solutions to that. But I think sometimes when she was talking about they do an abatement and they add up the cost of the abatement, I understand that, whatever that may be. I don't know if you do it in-house or if you hire it out to another small business. If you can reduce the cost that you have well, excluding if you have specialized EPA stuff, but if you're just, clearing the land, just clearing out the structure itself, and reducing the cost that you incur on something like that, you put that lien against the property. What I think I heard was that that's the only lien on the property, which makes you in first position. Now, unless there is a mortgage of some default, or mortgages are not the same as trust deeds, but if there's some other lien, then you have to put yourself into first position in order to foreclose, isn't that right?
I think what I understood is that, well, yeah, they probably don't have liens on, but they might have tax liens, but when the city, the municipal, or the city forced the lien against, foreclosure against the lien, that put them in first position
Above
is
the
what I
taxes?
understood. Yeah, and I need to research that.
Yeah, that's unusual. The taxes are first, mortgage, of course, if you ever file a mortgage or a trustee. But, because those are handled two different ways on a mortgage, foreclosure, and a trustee. But, yeah, taxes usually right there in front, unless they have an agreement, because then they'll get paid their taxes as well as you put the property back into to good use. We need to figure out a way to do that.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
And I can address that as well, and it
Okay.
might illustrate the problem a little. We're currently doing an abatement. In fact, the cleanup work is being done tomorrow on 2 different properties. We are going to spend about $2,000 to clean the property only. It has a carport that's in partial collapse. It has asbestos siding. The assessment would cost $8,000 for the work. The cleanup is about $3,000 of that. We will put about if we do all our work ourselves without owning the property, we have to pay for it. We can't use brownfield money. That will cost us, total, we're talking about $12,000, $13,000 now. The property is worth probably less than 10. That's after abatement. So that's where our economics become problematic. And then if we go and we have to foreclose on it and spend more money on it, we're going to lose even more. So our most likely avenue is to leave the lien on title and properties and at our own expense, put a lien on title. And because it's a secondary or a third lien, we never get the money back. So we've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Over the last 10 years, we've spent about $650,000 on code enforcement, abatement, and cleaning liens. We've received back about $130,000 of that. The rest has just been put out for expense. You would be hard-pressed, unless you have been here that entire time, to see the progress. We still have a huge, significant problem we have not been able to cure. So how do we address the long-term entrenched problems? We start with code enforcement, of course. It has the best traction, it's the most likely to get change. Unfortunately, it doesn't work in all cases. It's also a very time-consuming and very expensive process. You have to put on somebody to write those tickets. You have to go to court. You have to hire your attorney. He has to go and be the prosecutor on those. You have to try to collect them if you do get a settlement. The other way we can try to take care of that is property acquisition. So what we've done as a town is we have 3 properties on our main street that we acquired during the same period where everybody was leaving. We are attempting to sell those properties and use that money to purchase the other buildings on Main Street and fix them up. It's a land bank concept, very popular back east in Detroit, in those areas where light is the big hot button issue, but it's not really an established thing in Arizona. So it's in essence, it's a new approach. Hopefully, we can get it done. It is, however, depending on our ability to sell properties. And if we buy a property and we sit on it for 5 years, I guess it's all our problem. We can do improved vacant building standards. We could adopt a law saying that if you have a vacant commercial building in our town, it has to be inspected by the fire marshal, inspected by the building official. It has to pay a registration fee. This is another method that's common in other states. But we're also very aware that because we would be the first adopters of such a policy in Arizona, we would be sued. The Water Institute would most likely sue us. And we do not have a legal representation or able to represent us on that. So we're going to take on this approach. So enforcement, it's a long, time-consuming process. It can take up to a year for the process to work through the courts from first inspection all the way to fines. Even when you get to fines, you may not get a result. If they don't extradite for code enforcement, they could they throw the judgment in the garbage can, there's nothing we can do about it. Code enforcement, however, on properties that are occupied, if we do find an owner, is our most successful approach. We have, over the years, written several thousand, in excess of 2,500 code enforcement notices, and the voluntary compliance rate on that is somewhere around 80%. So 80% of people we send a notice to fix it. The last 20%, they ignore it, they take it to court. If the court does not get a result, if there's that small percentage of that percentage, they completely ignore the notice, they're abandoned, there's nobody to cite, those are the properties we're left dealing with. We can do an abate, clean and lean. We go in and we send a notice to the last known address of the owner, and we say, we would like to clean this property up, or we'd like you to clean it up. You have 30 days. If they don't, then we go up and we forcibly abate the property. We can put a lien on title for this, which is great, except the cost of abating some of these properties. We started with the demolition program. We would go in, we abate the property, we demolish the building. It would cost us somewhere in the range of $20,000 per building to demolish it. Every building in town that we've tested has asbestos in it. We've been working heavily with Travis Barnum, with ADEQ. He's been providing us resources to try to deal with our cleanup problem. But if we don't own the property, they can't pay to clean up the property. So we can't abate a property and get rid of the asbestos. We have to get title on that property in order to be able to use brownfield money. Right now, the cost of getting title, we can do several things. We can condemn the property, we can put an abatement on it, lien it, and then foreclose in 5 years, or we just wait for somebody else to buy it and get our lien back. There's no clear way, simple way for the town to take title. Right now, some of these properties, the tax hasn't been paid. We've got one, the tax was paid in 2001. Nobody's paid the tax since. So a little old lady went into a nursing home and died. So, the property access hasn't taken title. I assume they don't want it. There's no value in the property for them. So the cost of actually taking title is higher than the value of the property. The state could take title, could take the tax certificates, but even they, when they take the tax certificates, don't sell the property. They just wait for somebody else to come to buy the tax certificates so they can transfer title. There's no clear way for the town to get title of these properties. That has been a significant deterrent, and it limits our ability to abate them because we can't use brownfield money. Now, if we use the brownfield money to go in and clean up the asbestos problems, secure them and paint them and clean them up, and then put them back on the market, the program might break even or lose a limited amount of money. We only have, last year we spent $10,000 on abatement. This year we're going to spend $20,000. That's not a lot of money.
Excuse me just a moment. Representative Cook has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So Todd, explain to us, what is the brownfield money that you said you can't use? What is that, where do those funds come from, and why can you not use those?
Okay, so the EPA has a brownfield grant program. The state has applied.
Federal dollars.
That's federal dollars, but the state has applied to ADEQ to have their own brownfield program. So they have some of that money that passes through. And Travis is here, he would be able to explain it much better than I. They can issue that money out to communities who need it. The town can use it for assessments, but we cannot do this, due to the federal rules, we cannot use it to abate a property we don't own. We can't go in and remove the asbestos from a property that we don't have clear title.
Okay, is that by rule or is that by statute?
Travis?
That's by rule.
Okay, Madam, are you going to speak today?
No, not now.
Let's finish this right here, then. Okay. No, stand up. So the question I have is, Madam Chairwoman, Todd, if this is by rule, is this something that we can do inside the government to possibly change for public safety matters, or is this something that we'd have to legislate?
At the federal level of what we have to follow for the brownfield, since we're getting that money from.
So it's their rules that do not allow you to do that, not our rules.
Yeah, they made a distinctive, you can have assessment money for brownfields without owning property, but if you do clean up, you have to have possession of the property.
Thank you. Thank you.
To give you an idea about the numbers, some of these properties may be valued around $10,000. The cost of attorney time to try to foreclose on it would be $2,000 or $3,000. The cost of basic security abatement is around $2,000 or $3,000. If we were to do an asbestos abatement, it'd be probably $8,000 or $9,000. So you see very quickly we're upside down on the entire, and especially since we don't have title and we're a secondary lien. So there's no way the town's ever going to get any money back from these properties. Because the cost is so high, we can do a very limited number of them. So we are looking for assistance on legislative ways to approach this, so that the town can somehow get title. And I've been, while we were here, I've been speaking to the treasurer. He has some suggestions on that, so I'll let him make his suggestions. But there are some ways that we could go out and get title on the property so that we aren't putting the money out. We don't have to incur an extra $5,000 just to get the privilege to go and clean it up. And we would be eligible for brownfield money, and we would be able to make more of a dent every year, because we'd be able to do more of it. You can see our current abandoned building list. We have dealt with one of these. This is an ever-changing thing. Buildings go on, buildings come off. But if you look, I have that same list in the handouts I've handed out, and there's some in the back. 3 of these are access properties. They're properties that someone went in and signed them over to Medicaid, and no one ever took title. This is our pilot project for our original cleanup. This is a low-cost, go and abate the property, clean it up, try to improve the quality of the neighborhood, not spend all our money in one place. This one cost us around $3,000, and we got $1,000 back. Here's the property after it was cleaned up. We removed all the structures, the garbage from inside the structure. We got rid of 60 tires from an outbuilding. We removed the weeds. There's, after it's done being cleaned up, then we put, the Chamber of Commerce painted the building, and then we went in for secure view polycarbonate windows. Polycarbonate windows will take an axe strike and not break. They're not bulletproof, they're bullet resistant, but they also have release bars on the inside. So if a firefighter or a policeman's inside, they can push and pop the window out and still have basic public safety. This building, once it was complete, sold for $30,000 the next month. We picked this one because it was a cute little building. We thought we could get some traction on it. The others, the next 3 on the list, are not this attractive. They're not going to get this kind of traction. They're not going to sell for $30,000. The likelihood is the max will be about $10,000 on the ones we're doing next. And I've again put pictures in that little flyer of the next 3 we're doing. So things we're working on. We want to do the land bank, and we are attempting to sell our first building. Again, Travis is helping us with that because our building on Main Street was contaminated with asbestos and with mold. But we own that building. So ADQ is giving us a grant to clean it up, which I believe by the time we're done, we're going to be in the $70,000 range. I haven't seen the final number yet. So thank you very much to them for making that possible. If we sell that building and we make its value, it's assessed about $200,000, we can take that $200,000 and buy 2 or 3 of the speculative properties on Main Street, fix those up, and we sell those. So that is our plan. We've been trying to sell it for a little while now, and we haven't had success yet, but we're still going to keep plowing away on that. Hopefully with the winter visitors coming back and interest in that market, maybe we'll get an interested buyer. We are continuing to work on the vacant building code changes. We have them ready. We just want to try to gauge and run these by some of the agencies that would potentially sue us to see whether or not they're okay with these things. You can require the utilities to be turned on. You can make sure the building's safe, require its inspection, but otherwise let them let them keep it as a vacant building. It doesn't change those vacant building status. The problem is that we are on the cusp of a renaissance in our community, as I've said. People are moving back. If you looked at Superior's Main Street 5 years ago and you look at it today, it doesn't even compare. There were 3 businesses then, there are 13 now. It's a vibrant community filled with a lot of potential, and we're being held back by the abandonment issue and the speculator issue. There's essentially 2 silos, 2 different problems. The speculator issue, where the tax laws work extremely in their favor, and they punish the town. The town has no standing at the appeals hearings. We can't ask for an appeal of an evaluation. So if a speculator owns a property that's worth, that is being taxed at $700 a year, and the building next to it is being charged $3,000, the town can't say, this is unfair, this isn't right, please reassess this. You can ask the assessor, and he can ask for an assessment. But we can't appeal the hearing, as far as I've been told. So he's looking at me like I'm wrong, which might be good news. So there may be a way to do this, we'll see. But because these properties are so undervalued, they're being so little taxed, number one, there's no stimulus for them to reuse the property. If you're paying nothing for the property, you're not maintaining it, you're not spending any money on utilities, you're not spending any money on tax, you can hold it indefinitely. And there's no incentive to get a business in there, to get somebody generating revenue to pay their expenses. So they don't put renters in there, they don't fix them up. In fact, they let them rot, actively let them rot. A good example is the old Uptown Theater. It used to be a theater on Main Street. It was a little one-spot theater. It was in fully functional shape when it was purchased. They let the roof start leaking. Rather than fixing the roof, they ripped the roof off. Then the interior structure started to fail, and it began to sag into the street. The town was forced to go in and knock the building down. That building all the remnants were hauled out to the transfer stations, and that formed the core of a pile that was added to by every other demolition in town. It became an asbestos-contaminated landfill, and had an estimate of $900,000 to clean up. The town has worked hard. We did, with ADQ's help, we came up with some innovative solutions. We got that cost out about $350,000. We just finished the cleanup. The building was knocked down in 2007, and we just finished the transfer station in 10 years. These small decisions have huge impact, and this abatement and blight has really has led the town's direction for a long time. In order to get past it, we need some lever to break the stalemate. That's where we're sitting right now, the stalemate.
I have a question. In some of the examples you gave where someone had gone into through access, and so they don't have their property anymore, is there not a way to use the quitclaim deed so that you can obtain the properties quickly?
Perhaps that would be a question for access. I do know that we have attempted to do this in the past. Generally, we have to hire attorneys and everything to do it, so it's not an expensive process.
It's not expensive to do that.
Yeah, I would love to hear about that more. We have not tried that. We've tried just about everything else in the world.
Sure.
Even finding out which of these properties have access liens has been a challenge for us. So,
Are the liens not recorded?
some of them are and some aren't. We just know that was a senior who went in and died. We don't know. That's just anecdotal information. So some of these happened so long ago, they maybe predate the records. So again, the whole point of talking to everyone is to get the word out. Maybe somebody has a story, maybe they have an approach we haven't tried, and we'd love to have new approaches so that we could try something else. We've tried a lot of different things. Most of them are blown away.
Yeah, it's obvious by your examples. Thank you very much. And Representative Cook had a question.
Todd, is there a state agency, when you talk about access and things, is there a state agency that is not giving you the answers or the information that the town is requesting?
Well, I haven't tried Access in a long time. And I know Travis has made a lot more progress than I did because I made him aware of the problem, and he's been contacting Access. I tried, when I was the code enforcement officer, I've been the code enforcement officer for 5 years. But I tried to reach out to Access. I tried about 10 different phone numbers.
Okay, Todd, excuse me, I know people, we gotta move on, so let's just cut to the chase. So you're now not the enforcement officer, you're the town manager,
Yes.
correctly? Okay, so is there an agency that is not working with you as the town manager that you think that we could help with? Or are you getting the information you're requesting? Because what you just said was, you haven't tried since you were the enforcement officer, now you're the town manager.
Yes, and the fact that we've been reaching out to, and Access has been willing to talk to us now, which is great. Just calling this meeting was an extreme help, because I've spoken to the gentlemen who have the decision-making ability, and I have attempted to reach out in the past, and they, in their defense, they may not have solutions for me. And that's, I don't know that anybody has intentionally obstructed me. I think that the economics of this conversation are very difficult, and there's not easy tools to break through their bad economics.
Okay, one last question then. From the meeting that we were in Phoenix with the mayor and you, and some of the people are here today, there was some, I think it was the city of Phoenix or someone that offered, because we don't have the high-powered attorneys here on staff and all that, but there was someone in that meeting that offered their assistance as an attorney for a big city to help maybe find that solution. Have they reached out to you since then?
They have not. He was the director of the organization, he wasn't the actual legal representative. It's for Phoenix's Blight Program. They have about 300 properties they manage, and I'm sure they have lots of knowledge, but he has not reached out to me since. We have been reaching out to a number of other agencies. We've spoken to Tempe and Chandler, I believe, organizations. This meeting happened just a few weeks ago, so I haven't made huge progress on that yet. But we have been reaching out to all those contacts we're making. And that's kind of the difference to our approach now, is we've been attempting to deal with this problem in our own little silo. What we've been doing recently is reaching out and speaking publicly and trying to talk to somebody to see if there's a bigger picture solution that we're not seeing.
Exactly. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any questions from the public? Okay, thank you, appreciate it. So, Mr. Douglas Wolf, thank you. Property tax valuation and the appeals process.
Yes,
Thank
good
you.
afternoon, Madam Chair,
Good
and members of the
afternoon.
committee, and Representative Show, and everybody in the audience. Welcome. And I'm Douglas Wolf. I'm your county assessor. I was elected in 2012, so I've been in the job 5 years. And I think the second week I was in office, a gentleman from Superior called me, sent me a whole bunch of material about all the abandoned properties and all this problem that has been going on for quite some time. It's all public record. The owner is a person who bought all these properties, who is an eccentric to the core. He has properties all over the state of Arizona, a lot of them in Gila County, a bunch of them in Yavapai County, and buys them basically and lets them just disintegrate into nothing. And from the assessor's role, all we can do is we just value and classify properties. Most of the properties that this gentleman owns in this area, 69, something like that, are at salvage value. And the statute defines salvage value as it's uninhabitable, unusable, or has been condemned, one of those three. So the vast, vast majority of those properties that this particular investor, I say that with quotation marks because we have no clue what the investment is or what the path is. I was in real estate for 30-some years, and usually people are looking for a return on their investment when they put money into real estate. This doesn't seem to be the case. This is the strangest thing. And we have been in the Board of Equalization hearings many, many times with this property owner, and he's very smart, and he wins most of the time as far as dealing with us. The Board of Equalization usually favors this owner, not the county assessor's office. So we do our, again, so most of it is salvage, which we've determined that's the status, and most is worth little or nothing on the books because salvage value is basically zero. So our role basically is that's where it ends, is classification and valuation. And as I said, we've This goes back almost 30 years. My chief appraiser's been with the county 30 years. And he said, he just wrote up some bullet points. It says there's been a huge amount of properties in Superior as salvage value, which I just talked about. In the past, building permits were seldom taken out. And they normally what happens is building permits are pulled. It goes to the county sends them to our office. And then when we get a final permit, we go out and value the property. That process hadn't been followed on many properties in Superior, so we don't even know what's even out there unless we canvass physically. Told you about what the salvage values are. Also, that the sales in Superior have been very minimal. I think 14 in the last so many years, so it's just little or nothing. So you don't even have market values that you can use that are accurate based on the statute. There's 3 ways to do commercial properties: market, cost, and income approaches. Most of them we've done on the market value, and there is none for all these properties. So that's how you have the downward spiral that I talked about. That's basically our role in the process. We get the valuations, we hand it over to the county board of supervisors and the different tax authorities like the school districts and so forth. They apply their rates, and then they send it on to Mike McCord's office, the treasurer's office, and he generates a tax bill every year. And I'm glad to take any questions.
Okay, Representative Cook has a question, and then I'll continue.
Thank you, Doug. So it sounds like to me that you've been working with this stuff for some time, ever since you've been in office, right?
It came up in the first or second week I got in office was the blight in Superior.
Okay, so is there any suggestions you may have or you've given since you've been in office of how this could be solved, whether it's inside the county in the system that happens or a legislative fix that we can look at?
The problem is, as aptly described, is the county has no authority over Superior because it's an incorporated city. So our planning and zoning and all those authorities that we would have for non-corporate areas, we have no power to do anything except just our functions, evaluation, and classification. And so I know they've been trying, but there's not anything in statute or at the county level that we can do beyond just our normal function.
Right, so I understand the ability to govern lies with the town here, but my question was, have you put anything forward to the town or to a legislator to maybe how this could be fixed? I'm not saying that you have the governor's responsibility. I agree that the town has that in an incorporated area, but have you done anything?
Yeah, well, in talking to the county attorney almost immediately upon taking office and other knowledgeable assessors around the state, basically I was told there's nothing we can do.
Thank you.
Excuse me, I do have a question that's related to that. And with the municipality, they do have the capability to have memorandums of understanding between other entities, other cities, other towns and counties. Would a memorandum of understanding between the county and the town of Superior be beneficial in some solutions that you think may be there?
I doubt it. I don't know. I'm not an expert on that area of law, but I doubt it very much that our state and our country is very much in favor of the property owner. And so, they just basically, their hands are tied, like they talked about. They can send out notices and do anything they want, but a lot of times compliance is only can be enforced by the town itself because it's incorporated. The county has to be hands off.
Right, and I believe in private property rights, and I think they're really important to our country and our communities. But I also believe that ownership of property has a responsibility that goes with it, and safety is a big concern. To buy properties, as the example you gave. Perhaps he's looking for the offsetting tax benefit of allowing the property to decline.
Yeah, well, Madam Chair,
there could be a lot of things that are going on there, and unfortunately, I don't think it's appropriate that he allows these small communities to bear the brunt of that. It's very disheartening.
Madam Chair, I think everyone is in agreement with your sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
The town, the county, everybody.
Sure.
Just this one person has a different view of the world, and unfortunately has the law and history on his side.
Okay. Yes, sir. Your name, please. Did you fill out a request to speak form?
No, I did not.
You will need to do that.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay.
May I ask my question?
Yes, please, stand up, give us your name.
My name is Jim Shank. I'm actually just a volunteer with Real Superior. But since in small towns, we all multitask. I own a historical building in town. I own a building that I've had since 2016. I pay about $1,600 a year in taxes, which I'm happy to pay. But as far as a commercial building, I about break even. I make no money. Now, Dr. Wilt, who is who we're talking about, owns a building across from me. I have a problem, I'm trying to understand the salvage classification. So the building that's across the street from me, which basically pays nothing, to sell it to me or to anybody else, he basically wants what I paid for my building, which has doors and windows, people occupying it, and social benefit going on. So on the one hand, I'm paying taxes and he's not, yet he refuses to sell it at a salvage price or for what it's worth. So to try and get a true investor to buy that building is next to impossible. So it's not just the classification. He's allowed to get away from this with this classification, but then he will not sell it as a salvage product. So I would urge that we look into, if you want to call it salvage, if you want to be taxed salvage, you damn well better sell it as salvage.
Interesting idea. Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you. Phil will those out. Did you have questions? Okay. Okay, thank you very much.
Madam Chair, I would have sent around a map that everybody can look at to see all the properties that are in yellow that are owned by this particular investor. You can send it around the room.
Good
Everybody
idea.
can see where they are in Superior.
Okay.
I apologize not for having copies for everybody, but.
Not a problem. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cook, Mr. Schultz.
Mr. Mike McCord. Property liens within the county.
Good afternoon, everyone, Madam Chair,
Yes.
representatives, how are y'all this afternoon?
Good.
So, the tax lien process, I have not had 6 years to deal with this and learn about it like Mr. Wolf has. I've only been in office 2, but it has been an educational process. And it probably took me right up until the first year of tax lien sales, which happened in February, to completely understand. So, let me give a brief overview of the tax lien sale process so that everybody has an understanding of it. So if you don't pay your taxes in a given year, the following year, in February, by statute, there is a tax lien sale of that property. The person is not bidding on the value of the property, the person is bidding down the interest rate on the property. The interest starts at 16%. We use a company called Real Auction, which is an online auction company. You go online and you would bid a percentage. So if I say 16, you may say 10. That person then bids down the interest rate that you would pay on that property. So if you're the winning bidder, what ends up happening is you pay the interest plus the back taxes on that property, and then have the ability that after a period of time could foreclose and take possession of that property. After so many years, which is about a 5-year process, you have the right to foreclose on that property and take possession of it. If during that time the homeowner or taxpayer pays back the lien, obviously the property goes back to the person that was living in the property or who initially owned the property.
Within that 5 years.
Within that 5-year period. It's a 5-year period process from probably beginning to end for you to be able to foreclose on a property.
Right.
If, much like these properties, they're being picked up by an investor, and I'll use quotes like Mr. Wolf did, there is not really much you can do about that person. They have foreclosed and have taken rightful possession of that property. Now, if it's a property that nobody has taken possession of, after 5 years of easy certificates, meaning basically that property sits in limbo, we would then deed it back to the state of Arizona through a process of doing a title search. We would send out letters to the people who may have liens on the property, If there is no response, then we would deed the property back to the state, and then the state puts it back up for sale. Most of these properties, though, because I think of the kind of the downward spiral of what's happening, nobody's picking these properties up because they don't see any value, unfortunately, in the property. So as Todd had alluded earlier, just in kind of our brief conversation at the beginning of this meeting, the cost associated for them is cumbersome, obviously. It's a small rural community, and spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to take possession of a property is very difficult. So just in our brief conversation, kind of two thoughts came to my mind. The first I'll share with you by kind of reading, so if you got pens and paper there, I'll read you the statute so that you can go find the paper. It's 42-18303, and it's section E. And it's kind of tiny here, so I apologize. It says, the Board of Supervisors may accept an offer for the sale of real property held by the state basically for the purposes of flood control or transportation to a city. I would add the caveat to that for public safety.
Hope someday somebody buys it. But that property's been sitting since 2001 with nobody paying tax and nobody buying it. So,
That's tough on the revenue side. If you're not paying taxes, you're supporting the schools, you're supporting your police and your fire. Absolutely. So, any other comments? Do you have any closing remarks? I don't know, I have a microphone. Okay, all right. Oh, I am so sorry. Yeah, before we move on to something else, the state recovery program, is this microphone just not working well? I don't know, talk a little louder. Is going to present, Mark Heck is going to present the Arizona Health Air cost containment, there we go, all those words, access, as we say.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair, representatives, for the time to share some information on the Arizona State Recovery Program. State recovery programs have been federally mandated for all state Medicaid agencies since 1993. Arizona's program is far less stringent than most other states. In Arizona, the state recovery program applies only to members enrolled in the Arizona long-term care system. We do not take possession of property. We only recover costs of medical assistance or a portion of the medical assistance when the property is sold. We do not automatically file liens on property when people enroll in the All-Tex system. While an All-Tex member is alive, we will file a lien on the member's property only if the following conditions are met. The member has been living in a nursing home for 90 consecutive days. The member does not have a spouse, a son or daughter under 21 years of age, or a disabled son or daughter of any age living in the home, and does not have a sibling living in the home for at least a year prior to the member being admitted to a nursing home. Before we file a lien, we send the member a notice of intent to file a lien, and we give the member at least 30 days to inform us of any exemptions that may qualify before we place the lien. If the property is sold before the member passes, it's called a TEFRA lien recovery, and we collect the amount of our claim or the net profits from the sale of property, whichever is less. After a member passes, we file a lien if there isn't already one in place, unless the member is under 55 years old, or if the member is survived by a spouse, or survived by a child under 21, or survived by a child of any age who is blind or disabled. In these situations, access does not waive the claim. We'll also waive our claim if the member's heir owns a business at that property, and the business has been in operation for at least 12 months preceding the member's death, and the business provides more than 50% of their livelihood. We'll also waive our claim if an heir has resided at the residence at the time of the member's death and has made the residence their primary residence for the preceding 12 months, and the heir does not own any other no exemptions are met, then we would expect to make estate recovery, again, only when the property is sold. We do have a process for an heir to request that we only make a partial recovery. The heir would need to complete a form requesting partial recovery and provide documentation of their income and not any other supporting documentation. At that time, we would consider the following factors in reducing our claim. The financial or medical hardship of the heir, the income of the heir and whether the income is below the federal poverty guidelines, resources of the heir, value and type of assets in the estate, the amount of the excess claim against the estate, any other creditors that have filed claims against the estate or have foreclosed on the property, and any other factors that would be relevant in making a fair and equitable decision. In response to the blighted property situation, I believe there's two ways that we may be able to help on a case-by-case basis. One, if you find someone who is interested in buying one of these distressed properties by paying off the overdue taxes, we could work with them by reducing our claim to the point where the purchase may be feasible. The second opportunity is if an heir is interested in selling a property and qualifies for a partial recovery, we could reduce our claim to the point where the heir could satisfy the tax and estate recovery liens and still keep some of the money from the sale of property. Again, these would be on a case-by-case basis. We do have an estate recovery brochure available on our website that has information on our requirements and processes in a lot more detail. And I would welcome any members of the community or members of Access that have an interest to look up that brochure. Any questions?
Thank you. And Mark, I want to tell you that that's what I think the people need from government is, you came up here, you said this is our responsibility, here's how the process works, you made it short and precise to what the points were, and then you came up with two solutions that you were willing to do on a case-by-case basis to solve this. So what we've been given are 3 properties that I believe that the agency may be hindering a little bit, and I think that you've come up with some good solutions here at this hearing that the town can reach out to you and see if they can come to some kind of a compromise and resolution. So I want to thank you because what I always say is that people want good government, and I think what you have shown me here today is just that. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any questions? No, I would agree with that. And you, this is all about solutions, you know, and what can we live with? Some solutions you can't live with really, so they're not really a solution. So these are solutions that are helpful to the community and to more than just 1 or 2 individuals here and there.
Again, the hard part is finding the right buyer.
Yes, in any real estate transaction, the right buyer and the right property, always the situation that goes on. But I'm going to go look on your online and have a little read there to see what else is going on. But I appreciate these couple of solutions that you brought forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other than to say thank you for doing this here, I think this has been something, as I mentioned early on, that the mayor and I and Representative Cook have been talking about for a while. I think I too would like to give kudos to our last speaker that we had some solutions that we can possibly work on over the next legislative session or working on other items within the agency. As we go forward, I can tell you, my family owns a business property in Coolidge. I know that other colleagues of mine, both sides of the aisle do, and it really does sicken me whenever people own business properties, especially on main thoroughfares of town, and they don't keep their properties up. I can't tell you how often and how much money we spend at our grocery store to make sure that our storefront looks good to our customers and our community every day. This is something that I really do take very personally because of that, and I hope that hope we were able to shed a little bit of light for our staff here today. Hope we're able to share a little bit of light for the folks that came to visit today on what's going on in some of these areas and what we can maybe do and work on together to accomplish some good things for the folks here. And I think one of the things we often talk about, and especially on my side of the aisle, is people just is this like we need to give Superior money to do this, or like some sort of a government bailout? So no, I think what this is this community, which has changed for the better dramatically over the last 5 to 10 years, wants to keep down that path and wants to have an ability to grow their own tax base through this property taxes and then sales tax generation that would go through that. So anything I think we can do to help with that is excellent, because it really is about controlling your own destiny. So if we can be a vehicle for that, that's what I want to do in the next couple of years.
I think this one works. Thank you, Madam Chair. I greatly apologize for being late. I should put that out there. I came from northern Arizona and it's snowing up there, so we got snow, which is early for all of us up there. But I greatly appreciate having the opportunity to listen to folks come and share some of the concerns, because, as was mentioned, these are concerns all across rural Arizona, and certainly my district, which is the district next door up in northeastern Arizona, the same issues we're facing in Holbrook and Winslow and so forth, so along the I-40 corridor. So thank you for the information, greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and members. Today, to the public, what I'm taking away from here is that TJ and I have already talked about, we're going to take a look at the brownfield funds, the ones from the EPA that are being administered by the federal government. And that's why we wanted to find out if it was a rule change or if it was in statute or legislation, because I think we can maybe get this changed. And our first concept is that maybe we can get it changed for rural cities and towns under a certain population base of 5,000 people, because those are the places that really need it. Mesa's at what, 500,000 people or more. The city of Phoenix is 3.5 million. If they raise one bill $1, the city of Phoenix overnight can raise $3.5 million bucks. Right? We cannot do that in rural Arizona and these small towns. So there must be other methods that we can find. So the broomfield thing is that we will work on as a team up here. The second thing is the salvage value. What exactly does that mean in statute? I appreciate that. We're going to look that up on the salvage value. And maybe there needs to be a difference between the salvage value in a municipality of a storefront, in which the gentleman here has, where across the street it's fallen down, and the tax differential, and maybe one that is in the outside and outlying in the county. And maybe it's still an industrial or a commercial property, but they're not they don't have business people right next door within 5 feet trying to do business while that is declining. So we may need to look at that and see if we need to change a salvage value for municipalities and outlying areas. Okay. The second thing is the $2 million in the grant system that we heard about from your organization that no one applied for. Well, I'm willing to bet, and that's before I got here, I'm willing to bet the reason why no one in these kind of small communities applied for them is because when you set the application standards, they were never going to be able to meet that, because when towns and places are down, we have a tendency to continue to kick them while they're down and make them not accessible to these funds by some hoop or loop or something they have to jump through. So I want to revisit that if you'll make an appointment with me to see. I just want to see what the application was to find out why they could not apply. The last thing on number 4 is the speaker we heard from Access. This is what we need. I won't mention it again, but government coming up with good solutions at the end of their presentation and being straight to business. And lastly, I want to thank Mike McCord, and I want to thank Doug Wolf from Pinal County. I think you guys care about these problems. That's why you came to this small community, and doing a good job. And Representative Shope is not on this committee, but he cares about this kind of stuff, and he drove over here to be here. I want to point that out. And the chairwoman, we could not have had this without the Speaker of the House approving it. We could not have had it without the chairwoman, Brenda Barton, who lives in northern Gila County, not in this district, approving it. And I need to give a shout out to Representative Benali. I love when we work on things bipartisanly at the state legislature. And I truly appreciate you making the long drive down here, and because we do have these problems all over, and I'm going to miss her. Okay? And what that means is she is not running for re-election, and she has been one of the best people down there in my first 2 years to work with. We have done some good legislation together and solved a lot of problems. So thank you, Bill. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you. It wasn't working, then it was working, now it doesn't work anymore. Okay, so I'll just pretend like I'm at the football game. And, but I really appreciate y'all being here, and all of you who did presentations, thank you so much. And I think that talking about these things, you know, and brainstorming is a way to come up with ideas that provide real solutions that we can live with and that we can prosper in our small communities and small towns in rural Arizona. I really believe that, and I was really happy to be able to do this meeting today, and we got permission to do this, and it was good to be here, and it's good for all of us to hear the different things that are going on. I appreciate the fact that Representative Cook and Representative Shope are going to look into the EPA brownfield funds and see if there's some kind of an exemption that can be applied for the small communities, populations, and things like that. And really appreciate learning a little bit about the access program on their state recovery. And we need to find a way, some kind of vehicle that if we need to change some of the Arizona statutes to make it happen, then we need to work towards that, where the municipality can receive a clear deed. They can have a deed to these properties that are declining, that are, you know, it's blight, it's not good for the community, and it's not good for property owners that are next door. And if your property is, and you're paying or not paying a tax because it's basically worthless, then maybe we can do some kind of city codes or something along those lines. Is if you have allowed your property to get to this point and it's a total blight property, then you can't sell it for the price. It goes back to property rights, so we're gonna have to work it out very gingerly. But it's not the example you gave, I think, is inappropriate, because they're taking advantage of the improvements you have on your property, and their property has no improvements, and it's declining all the time. I think, private property is important, but you have to take care of it. If you're going to be a property owner, you have to take care of what you have. Whether it's your own home or your own business, those things are important, and that's the responsibility of being a property owner, is taking care of those properties. But thank you very much, and I appreciate y'all being here, and we are adjourned.
Bye.